vlog. It is in fact Sunday. It is the 1st of December, so I thought I would check in, start off this vlog, and I'm starting my Terry vlog. My friend Terry is going to be picking my reads this week. It is the second installment in my friend take over my TBR that I am doing, and I'm really excited for the books that he has chosen. 3 books that he has chosen, but I'm an overachiever and I'm adding 2 more. Let's get into what books we're going through this week. This vlog is going to go over a week because I'm not going to be able to read all of these in a week. Even I am not that fast, but I am planning on hopefully reading all 5 by the time this vlog would usually go up. So this vlog will go on longer, but you won't notice it because it's Sunday until the following Tuesday. So I'm giving myself 3 extra days. Starting out, the first book that I am going to be checking out is The Rhino Keeper by Gillian Forsberg. This one is about a man who had a pet rhino, an Indian rhino from 18th century, 1700s. And he traveled around Europe with his rhino, and it was the first time a lot of people in Europe had ever seen a rhino in person. And it's a dual timeline, I believe. We have the 2022 perspective, which is this young woman who, when there's some flooding that happens, a grave gets revealed that has a rhino embossed on it, and she then needs to investigate what is going on with this grave, and she discovers things within the grave, and then she has to confront grave robbers and a lot of things going on. So I am very excited, and I have actually already started this one, but I will give you some thoughts once I've gotten through the rest of the TBR for the vlog. Next one that I have on here is a slight shift in tone. We're going away from historical fiction, and we have a epic fantasy, and that's Hall of Bones by Tim Hardy. I did mention in my TBR video for this month that I'm really excited for this one because it is one of the SBF BO7 finalists, and I would really like to work my way through those because it was such a solid year and I had such praise for pretty much every book that was on that list. I did read one in my Esme vlog, so it makes sense that I would also read one in my Terry vlog. And this one is about a young man who is the second son in this clan. There's 7 clans that are always vying for power. And we are following the second son whose job it is to support his brother when their father passes on the mantle of leadership to his brother. However, their most prominent rival clan is now in cahoots with a ancient evil that has not been seen for generations. I imagine we're about to go to war and we're about to see all of that unfold. It has very Norse vibes. A lot of the names, we have Hrothgar and Jorik and the Vormund clan and the Reevesburg clan is all sounding very Norse. So I don't know yet, but I suspect it's Norse. We have in the middle of the cover, which I'm sure I am showing you, we have like a shield and axes and a sword, and the runes on them also look quite Norse, so I am assuming this has at least vague Norse inspiration, which is always a good thing. So I am excited to get into this one. Last one that he has put on this TBR for me is Bloodsong by Anthony Ryan. This one is the first book in the Raven's Shadow series, and in this story we are following Valen, who is a member of this order that are essentially like peacekeepers. It's like a combination between a religious order and the police, I think, as far as I'm aware. And he needs to he's training to be part of this order so that he can hone his skills for this pending war. I don't know much else about it, but I am very excited to dive into it at some point soon. And then for good measure, I have thrown in the sequels to Bloodsong, which are Tower Lord and Queen of Fire, which are books 2 and 3 in this series, and I am excited for these. I've heard that the series does mostly stand out at book 1, but I am very excited to give the whole trilogy a go, and yeah, hopefully I will fall in love with this trilogy. I think this is going to be the last full series that I'm going to read this year. A lot of the other ones I have on my TBR for this month are standalones. So this is going to be the last series potentially that I'm going to read. So I might be able to then like really knuckle down and like compile my list of series that I've binged, because I do rank them from worst to best. So I'm really curious to see where this one will fall. I am excited for all of these books. I am excited to get into them, and hopefully I fall in love with Anthony Ryan's writing, because he's an author I really want to check out more from. However, as I said, I have started The Rhino Keeper. Now, this is one that I'm really liking the writing style. It's really well written. It's indie published. It's from a small press that specifically focus on actual historical events told in novelized form, essentially, which is very, very specific niche. But yeah, I am liking it. I'm liking the writing style. I like our protagonist. She's someone that I think I find interesting because she has the kind of personality that doesn't feel like a fictional character. She doesn't have loads of these like really quirky attributes, these really interesting intricacies, this really interesting story, and in a way that's nice. Obviously, because a lot of the intrigue of this story is going to come through the dude with his rhino, this college student girl is really fascinating to me because she doesn't need to be the most interesting thing in the story, even though she's the protagonist, and I quite like that. So she's been quite interesting to follow. I am really worried about how I'm going to feel further down the line with the relationship between this man and this rhino, because I don't like animals in captivity. I'm not a fan of zoos. We've been to zoos. I have children. I do not put my money where my mouth is. I have children. I'm not a fan of animals in captivity. I'm really not. The zoos that I have been to, I have at least made sure they have some kind of rewilding program. A lot of them are rehabilitative, or they are to help amass numbers. It is for like reproduction. I really don't like captive animals. It's just not something I'm a fan of. So reading then about a man who has a pet rhino. I don't know how I'm going to feel about it. I mean, at the minute, the curiosity is still there. I don't know further down the line with the story how I'm going to fare with that aspect. But it's one of those things, isn't it? So we'll see how it goes. But the writing style is really lovely. The setting is lovely. It's kind of, the writing style is exactly what you'd expect from this cover. I know that sounds weird, but I feel like you know what I mean. We'll see how I fare with the rest of the book. But that's it. I have kicked off the vlog. I have started it, and the only way is up. I'm hoping to finish the Rhino Keeper today. I have nothing else to do today, so I'm hoping I can just get through the Rhino Keeper, and then I can relax and take my time with my fantasies. Hey vlog, it's still Sunday, but I did want to check in because I am halfway through my book. I have done some Christmas decorating, which you cannot really see from this angle, but I'm happy with it. I'm only decorating the reading room because the reading room is also where I stash all of my kids' presents. So they're not allowed in here, so they're not decorating with me. I am decorating the rest of the house with them at a later date. But as I said, I am halfway through my book, so I thought I would check in. And I have some mixed feelings on it. I am really liking the writing style. I think it's really well written. I think that it's clearly got some decent research to it. It is a little bit anachronistic in the sense that it's choosing not to portray any of the negativity of this time period. And I do think that is genuinely a choice. I don't think it's lack of information on the author's part. I think it is a choice that they are making so that they are not having to depict these things. So you have an Indian boy in here who is being treated well, and he is not racially prejudiced against. People are willing to talk to him, which again, not something that would have happened in this time period. We also do have this boy well treated by his Dutch master. He's not a slave, but the relationship is rather unequal. And he's like being treated well by him, and the way that this boy can address this man is also something that wouldn't have been commonplace. That's not necessarily erroneous, because he could have just been a very open-minded man. I don't know anything about this man prior to this book, so there's that. I think that is actually well executed, and in the sense that it's not trying to drag up all of the horrors of the time period, but at the same time, I think that it could tiptoe the line of erasure in terms of seeing things through rose-tinted spectacles. It does mean that you are erasing some of the things that people suffered. So do bear that in mind. If you would rather a more authentic depiction of these things, it's probably not for you. But if you are really tired of every historical fiction having to be really harrowing and awful because the time period had awful morals and ethics, then this could be for you, because it does have like that wholesomeness. It doesn't delve into those things. So I think that on the one hand, I can completely understand commentaries that would have issue with it and it'd be a bit, let's dumb down colonialism, let's sweep colonialism under the rug a bit. I can completely understand how people would dislike that and feel that way. Other people being like, I'm really tired of all historical fiction being about racism or homophobia or misogyny, etc. So I think that it's choice. It's not an accident. It's not the author not knowing her shit. It is a choice. It's just one that I think you kind of should know going in, so that you can then make your choice on how you feel about that. The same can kind of go in a way with the rhino. It is really well treated. It's really well loved. It's like a beloved pet, which I don't know. Again, I genuinely don't know how this man was treating this animal. Most animals of the time period were horrifically mistreated. If you think all the way to Barnum, which is about a century later, still the level of mistreatment is concerning. So there is that. Do bear that in mind. I think that my other issues are actually with the contemporary timeline. The contemporary timeline, like I said, we do have a protagonist that isn't this infallible, perfect being. They're not the center of the action. They are almost there to serve a purpose for the historical time frame, which I'm fine with. I can understand why people would dislike it, because I don't think that she's a very well-rounded character. I think in any case, the times that we do get a bit of like backstory of hers, it feels a bit misplaced because we're not getting much of her elsewhere. But I think it's fine. I don't dislike it. I just think that it's not the most captivating either. However, I do find that some of the things that she discovers, it's like people are surprised about, people are shocked about. I think that the issue with that is potentially that these are things that have been known. A lot of the time we do have things shown as this monumental discovery that definitely wasn't happening in 2022. Like, we definitely weren't discovering this thing in 2022. So I just think that potentially it's a little bit trying to big up the protagonist by creating these fallacies. But since the historical stuff is accurate, it's not bothering me so much. I think that I don't know enough about the representation of India to know how well depicted it is, but my friend Esme liked the Dutch depictions, so clearly it is doing a good job of cultural representation of Holland and the Netherlands. I just don't know how good the depictions of India are. I will need to go find an Own Voices reviewer at some point and see. So yeah, I'm liking it. I love the writing style. The writing style is really immersive. I don't think that the characterization is the purpose. So if you're a character-driven reader, I don't think this is necessarily going to be the most captivating for you. But if you're a plot-driven reader, I think that you could really potentially enjoy this one. So a lot to love, a lot that I can see being problems for others that aren't necessarily, at least at the moment, bothering me too badly, but that I am noticing them. So we shall see how this one concludes and how I feel about the ending. Am I the kind of person that is perpetually in pajamas? Possibly. Anyway, it's Monday morning. I have sent my kids off to school and I need to go get ready myself now. I figured I'd check in. I have finished the Rhino Keeper, so I thought I'd come in with some thoughts. I really did like this. I think the writing style is really what pulled it through. I think it really did have this almost fairy tale element. That's not quite right, but like this folklore, this, you know, if you come from a small town, anyone who's come from a small town, there will just be that story from that town or from that village that you're just like, really? But at the same time, you're like, do you know what? The people around here are just nuts enough for that to be real. And it kind of has that vibe, but like on a global scale. So I've never heard of this before. I don't know how real this is, but at the same time, sounds cool. Obviously, I know it is actually real, but it has that vibe to it, which I thought was good. Like I said in the previous update, I think it does a really good job of establishing these characters in a way that is gentle. And again, you can take that or leave that however you want to, because obviously there are conversations around erasure, around not showing the horrors of the past, being a pretense that they didn't happen. But at the same time, I completely understand wanting to just focus on this story and not want to constantly need to highlight the horrors of our history. So that entirely depends on you and your personal preference and what you like more out of your historical fiction. So deal with that information what you will, but that permeated the novel. So it is a gentle telling of history. It is a kinder angle. I think the contemporary perspective did lose me a little bit. Like I said at the beginning, I do really like that we do have this character that is very autonomous, this character that does feel a little bit separate to the rest of the story. I like that we have this protagonist that isn't the best at everything, that doesn't know everything, that isn't superior to everyone else, that doesn't even stand out in the crowd necessarily. I kind of like that notion. But I think that is probably better in theory than in practice, because she just lost me. I just kind of, I stopped caring about her life. I just wanted to get back to the historical parts. So you win some, you lose some. I think, as I said, I think it was a really well written story. I think it tells the story really well of this rhino called Clara. And I would read more by this author. So there's a positive there. I've ended up giving it a low 4-star. I had a really good time with it and a good success for my first book for the Terry vlog. That does mean that now I need to pick another read, and I'm going to be moving on to Hall of Bones. This one is a Norse one. I think I already said that in the intro. And we're following Hrothgar. I believe that it's in first person. I did quickly look at the first chapter. I think it's in first person, which I always like in fantasy. I know a lot of people really don't like it because it's such a narrow perspective of this huge world. But I think it rings the changes. I think we very easily kind of get this. I want everything to be big and epic and grandiose, while I really like occasionally being able to focus on just this one character in this world and how they exist in this space. So I am very excited for another first person POV epic fantasy. So I am excited for this one, and I don't think it's that long. I think for epic fantasy, it's on the shorter side. I think it's probably like around 400 pages, which is great because I still need to get to all of my Anthony Ryan ones. So a good start to the Terry vlog. Hey vlog, so I am now halfway through Hall of Bones and I am really enjoying this. This has a really compelling writing style. It has interesting character work as well. Like a lot of the more Norse inspired fantasies that I have read tend to be very world heavy, or they tend to be very magic heavy, you know, a lot on the emphasis on the gods and things. or they'll be very plot heavy because there's normally this really specific arc that the author has in mind. This one does seem very character driven and character focused, which I am enjoying. I really do like. I don't necessarily like the characters, but I like reading them. I would like to have a little bit more of an emotional connection to Rothgar. I think that he is a little bit of a character that we have somewhat seen in fantasy before, and I feel like he has some growth still to have. He is this younger dude. He is quite impetuous. He is like the second son, so he has had less responsibilities. And I am fascinated to see the learning curve that he goes on, not only throughout this book, but throughout the series. If I do choose to continue, obviously I'm going to see how the plot kind of goes in this first book. But I feel like it's very likely that I will continue because the writing style, like I said, is really easy to get through. The characters are very interesting. The world building is good. I don't think that it's doing huge amounts of groundwork. It is an awful lot of just like, it is Norse-ish, and therefore you're able to fill in the blanks yourself sometimes. Not in a bad way, not in like a lazy way, just more in a, I'm not going to bore you with this. The antithesis of classic fantasy. But I'm liking it. I am really enjoying the writing mostly, and the way that it's drawing me in, and the character work being about growth, it not being about how well rounded can I make this character, how much can I make you love this character from the get-go, and more about making me really want to see the journey that this character is going to go on. So yeah, I am excited to continue. Quick update today. I don't have anywhere near as much to say as I usually do, but yeah, it's not one that I have like really strong feelings about, at least at the moment, but it is a really good story, and I am always excited to continue. And I think that it's not going to take me a very long time to finish it, even though it's quite a long book. I think it's in the high 400s, maybe even pushing 500. I'm reading it on Kindle and the numbers are all a bit funky, but I'm really excited to continue, so at least there's that. Hey vlog, it is Wednesday, so I thought I would check in because I have an update. I actually have several updates. First off, I have finished Hall of Bones. It's been such a great reading week for me because my proofreading has been really simple. Like a lot of the time, if my proofreading gets in the way, like if I have to really do a lot, then obviously my reading for pleasure slows down. But it's been an awful lot of just the same thing rephrased, so I don't have to. It's not quite so taxing on the brain, which is quite nice. So I have been doing that. And I have had loads of time to read. Things are also slowing down for the Christmas period because most of the stuff that I proofread is educational. So obviously a lot of teachers are like, I really don't have time for this. And a lot of students are like wanting to wrap up the term. So I am not getting quite as much coming in, which is really nice because it means that I have more time to read. That's what I'm trying to say. So I finished Hall of Bones, and I did really enjoy this in the end. I really got sucked into it. It's a weird one because like I can't actually pinpoint anything wrong with it. Like I really enjoyed the writing, I enjoyed the characters, I enjoyed the setting. I think the setting also grew on me. I think that I don't know if I just like stopped feeling like I had to put in the work to fill in the blanks, or just if everything from a certain point on was just felt really seamless. I'm not sure. There were a few things I think that I noticed that make it feel a little bit on the self-pub side because it is self-pub, but again, that's not actually an issue. It's just something that I know other people have issue with, so I did think to mention it. But it was a really cleanly written story, and I did enjoy that. I think that was really concise and tight, and the editor did a really good job. I also really, like I said, I did really enjoy the characters. I think that Hrothgar has a really interesting like trajectory to grow on you and grow as a person throughout this book, and I cannot wait to see how he goes throughout the whole series. And I am really enjoying having characters that the background characters supporting Hrothgar are really fascinating in their own right. They're ones that I am interested in reading more from. So sometimes the first person is very like centered on this one character, and everyone periphery is a bit. There were some of the POVs that were introduced later on that I didn't really connect with, but I am assuming that they serve a purpose in later books, so I'm not penalizing the book for that at all. So everything in total has basically come to it being a 4.5 star. I can't give it 5 stars. It's not a new favorite. It's not the kind of book that I am going to think about very much, but I am excited to continue, and it is entirely possible that further down the line, one of the books might get 5 stars, because I can't fault it at the moment. Anyway, so that's where I'm at with that. But in further news, I have also started Bloodsong this morning, and I am already on page 181. This is so absorbing. So this is the one that's going to make or break mine and Terry's friendship. And literally just from the first, like, not even 200 pages, I understand why. It's so from the first chapter, I was like, I'm never going to put this down. This block, this brick, I'm never going to put this down. I cannot imagine a time where I will not be reading this until it is done. That first chapter, the way it is, because it's one of those where you start in like a point in the future and then you go back, and that's where the main story goes. Top tier. Absolutely love it. So we start with a chapter where our protagonist is essentially a captive and people despise him. And then you go back in time and you're going to see how that fares, like how that comes to be. And you go back to him being a child and being left with this brotherhood that are going to train him up, and so good. Already so good. Writing style is just absolutely addictive. And I was really concerned because Anthony Ryan, I know, is quite old school. Like, I know that he's not like old, but I know that he kind of adheres a lot to like old school trends when it comes to description, when it comes to writing, when it comes to women. So I was very hesitant, but you know what? I love it. I love it so much. I don't actually think we have had a woman mentioned for more than like seconds so far, but he is in a brotherhood, so I'm gonna let that slide. We shall see a bit further on if I still feel the same way. But so far, so good. So good. And he's kind of like if Fitz wasn't a whiny bitch. I love Fitz, by the way, from Realm of the Eldlings, for anyone who doesn't know. Fitz is one of my favourite characters of all time. I love him. I am definitely Fitz over Fool, personally. You can come at me, I don't care. I love Fitz, but he is a whiny bitch. And if Fitz wasn't such a whiny bitch, like, he literally gets left with his brotherhood, he gets like, you know, he doesn't have contact with his family anymore, he has no idea what's happening, he's also a young boy when this happens, he's suddenly getting trained up and garnering interest, and he is just so much more graceful about it. And I understand why Fitz is the way he is, by the way, like, no shade towards Fitz, I adore him. But Valen is like a more chill version of that. So if you like Fitz but just wanted him to be less whiny, you genuinely might like this, at least from what I've read so far. He also seems to be just a bit more useful than Fitz. This isn't a Fitz hating video, I promise. I love him. But yeah, no, so I am very excited to continue, and I can't imagine I am ever going to put this book down, and I genuinely am hoping that I could, like, if I can, I want to read this in a day. I just want to sit here and read this. This is all I want to do. So fantastic start to this series. Hey vlog, so it's my anniversary, so I'm probably not going to be checking back in now until Saturday, but I thought I would just quickly come in because I have made so much progress in Bloodsong. I am now on page 513, so I'm on part 4, and I'm flying through this book so much. It's so compulsively readable. Like, Valen as a character is just so easy to follow. I don't feel like he's a very imposing protagonist. You know how you have those protagonists that is like, it's so much, they have so much personality and so much charisma, or it's just so centered on them that everyone else is really, really background characters. I don't feel like Valen feels like that. He feels like a character of myth, a character of legend, someone who you want to know more about, and therefore you're getting the details of their life. And I really like the way this is told. It's so compulsively readable, and there's so little I can kind of tell you because there's not that much that happens from like what's on the back. It's very subtle a description, but it's just such an epic story, and it's so easy to sink into, and it's so engaging. And I find that like the action scenes don't feel like step by step this is how it played out. It's more cinematic. It's not cinematic. I think that detracts in a way. It's like, no, because it's very detailed, but it's not done in a way that is, and then he strikes, and then he moves, and then this happens, then we follow this person, and it's more, we are following a whole scene in itself. And I think that was really, really well executed. The writing style is just gorgeous. I would like for there to be more women in here than there are, but it's not bothering me as much as it probably should. So yeah, I'm having a fabulous time, and I can't wait to finish it. I will let you know on Saturday how I feel about the ending of this book and the star rating I end up giving it, and hopefully I will also jump into book 2 at some point soon. So maybe I'll come back with a much more extensive update. But these are ones that are going to be really hard to talk about because there's so little that happens on the back that I feel like from very early on things feel like spoilers. So I'll see how I figure out how to summarize this in a way that really fully explains how I feel about this book. Hey vlog, it is actually Friday. I said I wouldn't check until Saturday, but it's actually Friday, and I did manage to finish Bloodsong yesterday, and I love this. Like, the ending had me absolutely desperate to pick up the sequel, and I am so excited to continue with this world. So hopefully the rest live up to this. I hear that they potentially don't, or at least the second one doesn't. I don't know about the third one. I try not to look at reviews too much until I've read them, but I am very, very excited to continue because this was 5 stars. Like, no questions asked, 5 stars. Which actually, out of the 3 Terry ones, this is the only 5-star. But similar to Esme, because we had in the Esme vlog we had a 4-star, a 4.5 star, and a 5-star, and it's the same in this one because we have 4-star with Rhino Keeper, 4.5 with Hall of Bones, and a 5-star with this one. So at the minute, Terry and Esme are tied. Had a good time. Can't wait to continue. And that's exactly what I did. I picked up the sequel. So today, I haven't done anywhere near as much reading today as I would have liked, but I am on page 172. I would have liked to have been halfway. Can you imagine? But yeah, I think this one's going to be a bit slower. Now, I'm liking this one, but Valen feels really different to me for some reason. I cannot even tell you what exactly feels different. Just, he doesn't feel the same. And I don't mean in the sense that he's been through so much, so he will have inherently changed as a person. I just mean like he feels written differently, and I can't even pinpoint what. The plot of this one as well feels less, from book 1, I was like grasped instantly. This one's definitely going slower. I don't know if that's deliberate. I don't know how much of that is just due to it being maybe like a middle book and it's trying to set up even more stuff ready for the 3rd book. But yeah, I'm still having a really good time, and I really do like the writing style, but I am struggling. Like, again, with Bloodsong, I got through the book in 2 days. I can't see that happening with this one. I think this one will potentially take me longer, so we'll see. But it has been my anniversary, so we have been doing stuff as well. So that's also contributing to me reading less. We played the Ravensburger adventure book board game for Lord of the Rings, which we actually had a really good time with. Obviously, it's quite convoluted and there's a lot going on, so it takes a long time to get into and a lot of time to like learn how to play. So it took us a really long time to play it, but it was totally worth it. It took us about 3.5 hours. I suspect that will take substantially less next time because we won't need to like stop and read every 5 seconds. We watched, well, last night we watched The War of the Rohirrim, which I actually liked. I don't love it, but it was fine. But I had a good time. Obviously, the experience is part of it as well. I went to the cinema, it was our anniversary, but I did enjoy watching it, and I think that it had merit. There were definite flaws with it, and I think the more, if I sat with it and thought about it more, I would probably find more flaws. So if you're someone who's going in with a really critical eye, be wary of that. If you're going in just to enjoy it, I think it's a good time. So do with that what you will. We've also been assembling the creepiest Lego I have ever seen. We have Gollum and Frodo. I assembled Gollum, Herbie assembled Frodo. Very, very creepy. And now we're gonna go watch Rings of Power and eat some pizza. So things are they're just going well. I'm having a really nice like couple of days where it's just the two of us. The kids are with my parents for a couple of nights, and it's really nice because, you know, I've been married to the man for 10 years, so it was quite nice to actually be able to celebrate that. So yeah, Lord of the Rings vibes all the way, having a lovely time, and I'm gonna get back to it now. So hopefully I'll catch you tomorrow with a better update. Hey vlog, it is Saturday, so I thought I would check in. We are going to be decorating the house for Christmas today, so quick check in because I have actually gotten a decent chunk of reading done, and I have now gotten to part 3 of Tower Lord, which puts me at page 379. Like I said before with this one, I am liking it. I'm enjoying the plot and the pacing, but in this one we get some additional perspectives, we get some additional POVs, and one of the issues that I am having with this is that I am enjoying Valen's perspective, although Valen seems a bit different in this one. It's a 5-year jump between book 1 and book 2, and you can kind of feel like Valen's in a different place in a way. But we also have these extra POVs, and the problem that the other POVs have is that we've had a whole book of Valen. We've had a book getting to know him being the sole POV that we're getting, and us falling in love with him. And one of the problems that I have is that these other POVs, not only are they all introduced in this book, but we don't know them. So they're not only competing with each other to kind of be the one you get to know, but they're competing with Valen, who has had like 700 pages on them, or however long the first book is. I keep preferring to get back to Valen, and then I'm not connecting with any of these other characters on the same level as I am as him. So while I am interested and curious, I don't feel as strongly about them as I do Valen. And then Valen feeling a bit different is just throwing me even more through a loop. So the plot is interesting. I am curious to keep going, and I'm really enjoying the way that the story is being told, as always. I am not vibing as much. Like, I'm not disliking the characters. I'm happy to read them. It's just a bit like, but why am I reading you when I could be reading this other person? So, I don't know. We shall see. We'll see how I fare with the latter chunk. I'm hoping to get a decent chunk read today. It's 5 p.m. So I'm hoping to get a decent chunk read this evening and then finish this off tomorrow. And then I can go conclude the series and start the last one. Hey vlog, it's Sunday. I am chilling in bed, having a nice relaxing day because I have got stuff to do tomorrow. I'm going shopping tomorrow. Hopefully I'll have time to check in, but tomorrow's definitely not guaranteed because I'm literally like, the kids are off. but I am gone all morning because we're going over to Granada Shopping Centre, which is an hour and a half away from me. And then I am also going to have to wrap all of the things that I buy before anyone can sneak a peek. So I don't know. I don't know how feasible that is going to be. But I am here not to tell you about my life's woes, but to let you know that I have in fact finished Tower Lord. I finished it this morning, actually. I read loads yesterday in the end, and then I finished this morning. It's now midday. And yeah, I literally I stayed in bed this morning. I had no obligations for getting up. I mean, obviously, like, I got up and fed my children and my dog. I don't starve my loved ones. And yeah, they've been like chilling, and they've been playing with their Lego, and then I've just been reading. I sat downstairs for a bit with them while I was reading, and then I've continued reading upstairs, and I'm done. And this one is weird. As a book in its own right, it's a solid 4-star read. Like, it's a good book. As a sequel to Bloodsong, it's a huge disappointment. And that's a really weird contrast, because it's like, it's a good book, but when you come in swinging, all guns blazing, like Bloodsong, I don't mean literally, there were no guns in it, but like how impactful, how much that book just like kicked the door down to walk into my life. This was a disappointment. Like, there is nothing inherently wrong with this book. It's a good book. The characters in it are interesting. The plot is well written. The story is easy to follow and compelling. The writing style is really well woven. I have zero criticisms of this book in and of itself. Again, some POVs were weaker than others, which I always kind of end up feeling like I need to dock a star for, because a chunk of the book is not as good comparably to the rest of the book. But there is not a single thing I can think of that I'm like, this book was not a good book. And yet I've not come away feeling very strongly about it. And that feels disappointing, because I should feel strongly about it because of how strongly I felt about Bloodsong. What is this as a sequel? So I am hoping, because I don't know anything about book 3. I briefly looked at some comments for book 2 when I was going to pick it up to see what sort of direction it would go in. And I didn't look at any like reviews that has spoilers or anything, but just a lot of people seem to be a bit let down by this one. So I kind of went in forewarned. Now I'm really hoping this one's middle book syndrome. But I'm going to go now, actually, I'm going to stop this now. I'm going to go look up a couple of comments for book 3 and see if this one was middle book syndrome and book 3 comes back in, or if this is a downward trajectory. Okay, so for book 3, according to the reviews, it is a huge step down again, which is very concerning. It's the lowest rated of the trilogy as well. So this one looks like it's, instead of middle book syndrome, it's just the whole series kind of plummets. It peaks at book 1. So, but that's awkward, because I have actually read the first 100 pages so far of this. That's where I would like to get to. It's probably not doable. But I have read so far 108 pages. I am on chapter 8 of book 3. And I'm not seeing a huge step down from book 2 yet. Again, the writing style is really consistent. I really do enjoy Anthony Ryan's prose. And not enough has happened yet for me to be like, oh, the plot. Now, one of the things that I have noticed with each installment, at least so far, I can't judge much on this one, but I have noticed that I am becoming more and more disconnected with Valen. Like, I care less about Valen with every book that I read, which is very frustrating, because I don't want to fall out of love with Valen, because he's my main guy in this series. So I don't know how to feel about that, because it's like, it's not even like he's changing unrecognizably. It's just, when you have a friend and you've known them for a really long time, and then almost inexplicably you just kind of start to grow apart. Like, you just don't really miss hanging out with them as much, and they've not changed beyond recognition. They've not done anything to you. You just don't really miss each other when you're not around each other, and you just kind of drift apart and go on to friendships that do suit you, and it's no one's fault. And that's how I'm feeling about Valen. Like, he's not done anything that makes me hate him. He's not done anything that makes me feel differently about him. His personality has not changed, but something about how I'm feeling about the books maybe is making me distance myself from Valen. And I don't know how to bring it back. I don't know how to go back to how I felt about Valen in book one. And it's very frustrating because I don't want that, because then I'm going to know that I'm not going to like this book. This book has no fighting chance of me liking it against odds, against what everyone else is saying, if I personally am not connecting with the character that made me really enjoy book one. So I don't know how to bring that back. I don't know. So we'll have to see how I go about this. But I am hoping that I can actually get a decent chunk of this read today, because again, I did not think that I would read this as quickly as I did, because I was not vibing with it that much. But I'm hoping I can get a bit ahead of the game with this one, because again, tomorrow reading is going to be quite limited. So hopefully, is hoping I can actually get this book finished by Tuesday, so I can have this vlog up on Wednesday. Okay, so a grand total of 0 got filming on Monday. It just wasn't happening. I kind of figured I wouldn't. I did kind of predict that it wouldn't. But even still, I really did want to check in on Monday, but I have not. Also, not as much reading was done on Monday. I say not as much. I've read like 200 pages. I don't know why I do this to myself, but not as much as I had wanted, because I really do want this book finished by today, and I have way too much. I don't think it's going to get done today. Hopefully I can like edit this vlog and then just do one clip on Wednesday, and also have time to edit that clip, export the whole thing, and upload it all on Wednesday. Here's hoping. But I am now on part 3 of Queen of Fire. I keep thinking of Heir of Fire, which is a Sarah J. Maas book, which is again very, very different vibe. I'm not liking this. I'm not disliking it. I'm not liking it. It's a weird one. It's like, you know, when you're at a friend's, I don't know why I keep doing these analogies, but you know when you're at a friend's house and they serve you food and it's really not something that you would ever choose to feed yourself, but you don't hate it, and so you eat it, and you're just like, okay, I guess I'm eating this food, and it's not something you would ever cook for yourself, anything you would ever choose in a restaurant, and it's just because someone has served you a meal and you'll eat it. I am eating, but I am not really vibing. Again, not disliking it. There's nothing in here that I'm like, oh, this is the worst thing I have ever read. But for once, not only am I not giving a shit about Valen, which I said I was kind of falling out of love with him, which is really sad. Also, in this one, I don't give a fuck. I just don't. I don't care about the plot. I don't care about anything that's going on, because a load of things that got set up in book 4 don't matter in a way. Most of book 1 has gone out of the window. In this book, I don't know what the point of it is, and it's just to wrap up the series, I guess. And it feels like Anthony Ryan didn't have anything in mind. Like, it's just like, oh shit, yeah, I need to finish that series. Like, he'd already started thinking about another series and was like, oh shit, yeah, I need to finish that one first, and then just like shoddily put this together. The writing's still really good. I'm not going to knock the writing because it's really well written, but there's no point in it being well written because the plot is, I don't care. And the characters I don't care about. Even characters that I have loved for 2 books, I don't care about. And I'm just really annoyed at this book. I'm really angry at this book. And I don't even want to be spending the time reading it, apart from that I need to know how it ends. And the way that Anthony Ryan writes, it's not even one where I'll be like, oh, I'll just flick forward and see if it's worth my while, because there will be those linking threads that I will genuinely miss if I just go flick to the end. It will feel even more disjointed, but I wish I could. I wish I could just flick to the end, see how it ends, and call it a day. I'm not gonna lie. So I'm going to rage read. We'll see how much of this I can get through in today. And yeah, hopefully I will actually get this vlog up on time. Hey vlog, it is actually Wednesday. It did bleed into Wednesday. Of course it did, because why wouldn't it? I keep things timely. I finished Queen of Fire. I gave it 3 stars. None of my thoughts from the last update have changed at all. I didn't care about the plot. I didn't care about the characters. The ending was an ending. I don't feel like it didn't land the ending. It wasn't like, oh my god, it wasn't worth reading. What was the point in reading this about the ending? Likewise, it wasn't like, oh, you've redeemed yourself, book. I understand it was just an ending. Do with that what you will. So things didn't get better. Things didn't get worse. I guess I'm glad I finished the series because I kind of always want to know. I'm not like super glad that I read it where it's like, oh, thank God I read it because it was worth knowing the ending. So neither here nor there. And it's just one of those things. One of the things that I am really annoyed at is it does, so Orbit at the end of their books, they do the whole, if you enjoyed this book, read this other book. At the end of this one, they've put Battle Mage by Stephen Arion. Now, let me tell you, even if you don't like whatever hot mess this is, read Battle Mage by Stephen Arion. Just putting that out there. The series is done. So I'm going to quickly wrap up this vlog so I can get on with my life. And also, most importantly, get on with editing this so I can actually have it up in a timely manner. So, for starters, 1. I read The Rhino Keeper, which I ended up giving 4 stars. It was a decent read. I had a good time with it. There were a couple of things that towards the end especially started to irk me with the contemporary timeline, but for the most part, really solid book. Really good historical fiction, very rose-tinted spectacles, historical fiction. We're not going to talk about any of the historical atrocities. It is just, we're going to talk about this in this whimsical and nice way, which I think there is a time and a place for. If you do not want to deal with the trauma of your past in that moment, of the trauma of colonialism, of racism, of the mistreatment of women in history, if you don't want to have that conversation and you just want to consume something from a bygone time period, this could be a good one for you. If you want it to have an authentic conversation about the treatment of women, minorities, and animals in this time period, this is not going to do that for you because it doesn't actually converse anything. It's just a fun story. It tells a nice story about this time period through a nice lens. After that, I read The Hall of Bones, which I did really enjoy. I'm really glad that I read that one. I definitely will be continuing that series. I really did connect, especially with the setting and the way that this world worked. I really liked the world building. I was intrigued by the characters and their motivations, and I'm really curious to see where both the characters and the plot go throughout the rest of the series. So while it wasn't like bam, new favorite, it was a really solid read, and I've ended up giving it a 4.5 stars. After that, I did start this series with Bloodsong, which I absolutely adored. New favorite, this book. I ended up giving this one 5 stars. I loved it from almost the get-go. It was so compelling, and I was kind of willing to overlook certain things just because of how much I was enjoying it. This second book did feel like a step down for me, and it was a noticeable step down, but not in a way that was like, this is awful. It was a solid 4 stars. It just wasn't as good as book 1. And I was really hoping it'd be middle book syndrome. However, in came book 3, and it's mediocre 3 stars, and it's masses of mediocrity. So, there you have it. There is my very strange Terry vlog. I think if you factor in Nevernight as well, because I did read that for my Esme vlog, I'd say Esme and Terry are quite on a par at the moment. I don't think either of them is winning. They both got a 5 star out of me. Legacy of the Brightwash for Esme, Bloodsong for Terry. They both got a 4.5 stars that could easily be rounded up to 5 stars, which would be the Wickwire Watch and the Hall of Bones. They both got a decent 4 star from me, which would be the Rhino Keeper for Terry and the Fangs of War. And then I also read series that they recommended. Now with Nevernight, it was all 3 books that were like in an additional vlog, but they got the first 2 got 4 stars that got docked down to 3 stars because of issues that I had, and the last one got 5 stars with 1 docked to 4 stars. And then for Terry, obviously Bloodsong is part of the main part of the vlog, and then I just chucked these in, so these weren't actually necessarily his recommendations, but we did have a 4-star and a 3-star, so I'd say they're about on a par with each other at the moment, so that's really good. We'll see, maybe by this time next year when I've done a few more of these, we'll see like which friends' books I vibed with the most. That would be kind of a curious one to see. So let me know your thoughts on this series of vlogs that I'm doing. Let me know your thoughts on any of the books that I've read, especially the sequels in the Raven Shadow series. I really want more people's thoughts on it, because I don't know how I feel about them compared to Bloodsong. So let me know your thoughts on any of these. Let me know if you've watched both vlogs, which one you vibed with most out of the books, like which selection of books seems more like your thing. And that is it from me for today. So I will hopefully catch you in another one soon. Bye.